My name is Stella Mitchell. I'm 32 years old, and tonight was supposed to be our 5th wedding anniversary dinner at my mother-in-law's house. I stood in the crowded dining room, holding the homemade cake I'd spent 3 hours decorating. The frosting was perfect. Delicate roses and cream and gold, his favorite colors. My husband's entire family sat around the mahogany table. His parents occupied the head seats like royalty. His 2 brothers lounged beside their wives, all of them dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Even his grandmother was there, perched in the corner with her judgmental eyes tracking my every movement. Everyone looked elegant, polished, expensive. I wore a simple cream dress I'd ironed twice that morning, the same dress I'd worn to 3 other family dinners, because it was the only one nice enough. The conversation flowed around me: stocks, investments, vacation homes in the Hamptons. I smiled and nodded, when appropriate, playing my role. The quiet wife, the supportive one, the one who didn't have opinions about business, or money, or anything that mattered to them. Then my husband, James, looked at me across the table. His blue eyes were cold, dismissive. He'd been drinking wine for the past hour, and his face had that flush it always got when he wanted to show off in front of his family. "Stella," he said loudly, cutting through the conversation. "Everyone stop talking. You're too dumb to understand business. Just sit there and look pretty. Better yet, leave. You're embarrassing me." The room went silent, completely silent, the kind of silence that feels like the air has been sucked out of the space. I felt my hands go numb. The cake nearly slipped from my grip. My throat closed up so tight I couldn't breathe. I stared at him, waiting for the smile, the laugh, the "just kidding, honey," but his face stayed cold, bored, even, like he'd just commented on the weather. His mother smirked into her wine glass, her red lips curling with satisfaction. His brothers exchanged glances, not shocked glances, but knowing ones, like they'd been waiting for this moment. His father cleared his throat and looked away. Nobody said a word in my defense. Not one person. I had sacrificed 5 years of my career to support his startup dream. I had worked 2 jobs, one at a bookstore during the day, one waiting tables at night, to keep us afloat when his business failed twice. I had smiled through family dinners, where they treated me like hired help, asking me to fetch drinks and clear plates while they discussed their important lives. I had given him everything: my time, my money, my faith. And now, in front of everyone who mattered to him, he called me dumb. I set the cake down slowly on the table. My hands were shaking, but I forced them steady. I looked at him one last time, memorizing that arrogant smirk, the way his mother's eyes gleamed with approval, the way his brothers tried not to laugh. Then I turned and walked out. My heels clicked against the marble floor. Nobody called after me. Nobody followed. I heard his mother say something, and then laughter erupted behind me. I didn't cry in the car. I didn't scream, but something inside me cracked open that night, something that had been silent for too long. If you've ever been humiliated by someone you loved, hit that like button. You'll want to see what I did next. I drove home in silence, my mind replaying his words on a loop. Too dumb, too dumb, too dumb, too dumb. The phrase echoed in my head like a broken record, each repetition cutting deeper than the last. The streetlights blurred past my window, orange halos in the darkness that seemed to stretch on forever. My vision was foggy, not from tears, because I refused to cry, but from sheer exhaustion and shock. I gripped the steering wheel so hard, my knuckles turned white, my fingers aching from the pressure. My whole body felt rigid, frozen, like if I relaxed even slightly, I might shatter into 1,000 pieces. The drive that normally took 15 minutes felt like hours. Every red light was torture. Every turn reminded me of all the times I'd driven this same route, after working a double shift, exhausted but telling myself it was worth it, because I was building our future together. Our future, what a joke that turned out to be. I parked outside our apartment building, a modest 3-story brick structure in a neighborhood that was trying hard to be trendy, but wasn't quite there yet. Our car, the one I'd helped make payments on for 3 years, sat in its designated spot. I turned off the engine, and just sat there in the dark for 20 minutes, maybe longer. I lost track of time. I stared at nothing and everything, at the dashboard, at my hands still gripping the wheel, at the building where we lived, where I'd believed we were happy. The windows of our 2nd-floor apartment were dark. James hadn't even bothered to come after me, hadn't called, hadn't texted. He was probably still at his mother's house, drinking wine and laughing about how he'd finally put me in my place. James didn't know the truth. Nobody in his family did. They had no idea who they'd just humiliated. They thought they knew me. Quiet Stella. Simple Stella. Grateful to be part of their world Stella. The girl who worked at a bookstore and waited tables. The girl who never talked back, never caused drama, never had opinions that mattered. The girl who should feel lucky that James Mitchell, from the prestigious Mitchell family, with their big house and their country club membership, had chosen her. But they didn't know anything, not a single thing about who I really was. Before I met James, I wasn't just some quiet girl working retail to make ends meet. I was Stella Armand, daughter of one of the wealthiest and most powerful real estate developers in the entire state. My father, Richard Armand, didn't just own buildings, he built empires, shopping centers that sprawled across acres of prime real estate, luxury hotels where presidents and celebrities stayed, entire downtown districts that bore his architectural vision. His name was on half the buildings in the city, etched in brass plaques and carved into cornerstones. When people in this state talked about real estate, they talked about Richard Armand. He was a legend, a titan, a man who'd started with nothing and built everything. My mother, Catherine Armand, ran charities that fed thousands of families every year. She hosted galas at our estate, where governors and senators mingled with business moguls and Hollywood actors. She sat on the boards of hospitals and museums. She was in magazines, on television, respected and admired. Our family name opened doors that most people didn't even know existed. I grew up in that world. I grew up in boardrooms with leather chairs and mahogany tables, watching my father negotiate deals worth millions of dollars. I watched deals close over handshakes and champagne, watched grown men defer to my father's judgment, watched him command respect with just his presence. I learned negotiation before I learned algebra. I understood power dynamics and leverage and strategic thinking before I understood what love was supposed to feel like. My father taught me that everything was negotiable, that information was currency, that patience was a weapon. My mother taught me grace under pressure, how to read people, how to smile and make allies even when you wanted to scream. But when I turned 25, something shifted inside me. I wanted something real, something authentic. I was tired, so incredibly tired, of men who only saw my last name before they saw me, men who calculated my father's net worth before they calculated whether they actually liked me as a person, men who saw me as a business opportunity, a connection, a way to climb the social ladder. I was tired of fake smiles at charity events and strategic friendships, where every conversation was a transaction. I was tired of wondering if anyone would ever love me for me, just Stella, without the Armand name attached. So I made a decision that shocked everyone who knew me. I changed my surname to Mitchell, my mother's maiden name from before she married, into wealth and power. I moved to a new city 3 hours away, where nobody knew the Armand family, where I could be anonymous. I took a simple job at a small independent bookstore that smelled like old paper and coffee. I rented a modest one-bedroom apartment in a building with creaky floors and neighbors I could hear through the walls. I shopped at regular grocery stores. I took the bus. I lived like a normal person, and it felt like freedom. Pure, intoxicating freedom. For the first time in my life, people looked at me and just saw a girl, not a fortune. That's when I met James. It was a Tuesday afternoon, slow and quiet at the bookstore. He came in looking for a business book, something about startups and innovation and disrupting industries. He was charming in that effortless way some men are good-looking, without being intimidating, with an easy smile and perfect teeth. Ambitious in a way that felt exciting, rather than threatening, full of dreams and plans and visions for the future. He told me about his plans to build a tech company that would revolutionize something or other. I honestly can't even remember what now. He talked about changing the world, making a difference, leaving a legacy. His eyes lit up when he spoke about his ideas. He seemed passionate, genuine, real. I believed in him. God, I believed in every word. I fell in love with the man he pretended to be, the dreamer, the visionary, the underdog fighting to make something of himself. I fell in love with his stories about growing up middle class, about wanting to prove himself, about building something from nothing like my father had. I thought we had that in common. I thought he understood what it meant to want to earn your place in the world, rather than inherit it. I gave up everything to support him, everything. When I told my father I was getting married, he came to meet James. They had dinner at an expensive restaurant downtown. My father insisted on paying, of course. He was polite to James, asked him questions about his business plans, listened carefully. But after James left, my father looked at me with those sad, knowing eyes that had seen everything in his 60 years of life. He didn't yell, didn't forbid me, just put his hand over mine and said quietly, "Be careful, sweetheart. Not everyone loves the way you do. Some people see love as a transaction." I didn't listen. I was 26 and convinced I knew better. My mother cried at the wedding. I remember seeing her in the front row of the small chapel we'd rented, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. I thought they were happy tears at first. Later I realized they weren't. They were worried tears, fearful tears, the tears of a mother watching her daughter make a mistake she couldn't prevent. But I was stubborn, convinced that love conquered all. I thought if I just supported James enough, believed in him enough, sacrificed enough, he'd become the man I saw in him. I thought my love could transform him into something better. Now sitting alone in my car, outside the apartment we shared, with his cruel words still ringing in my ears, I realized the truth with painful clarity. James never loved me. Not really, not the way I loved him. He loved the idea of a quiet, obedient wife, who would never challenge him, never outshine him, never question his decisions or his judgment. He loved having someone to blame when his business ventures failed, someone to lean on financially when things got tough, someone to use when he needed money, or support or validation. He loved having a wife who made him look good, who worked 2 jobs so he could pursue his dreams, who smiled and stayed silent when his family mocked her. He had no idea who I really was, no idea that the woman he'd just humiliated in front of his entire family could destroy everything he'd built, or tried to build, with a single phone call. No idea that the dumb wife he'd dismissed so casually had more power, more resources, more intelligence than he could possibly imagine. And tonight, that was going to change. Everything was going to change. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and scrolled through my contacts. Most of them were recent. Co-workers from the bookstore, friends I'd made in this new city, James's family members. But I scrolled past all of those to the ones I hadn't touched in 5 years. The ones from my old life. I found the name I hadn't called since my wedding day. Dad, just that simple word on my screen, but it represented everything I'd walked away from. My finger hovered over the call button for a long moment. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Calling him meant admitting I'd been wrong about James, wrong about this whole life I'd tried to build. It meant opening a door I'd deliberately closed, stepping back into a world I'd rejected. It meant asking for help. After 5 years of radio silence, 5 years of proving I could make it on my own, but I was done being small, done pretending to be less than I was, done letting James and his family treat me like I was nothing. I pressed call. The phone rang once, just once, then my father's voice came through, cautious and surprised, and full of an emotion I couldn't quite name. He answered on the first ring. "Stella?" My father's voice was cautious, surprised. We hadn't spoken since my wedding day, since I'd walked away from the family business to play house with a man who just humiliated me in front of strangers. "Dad," I said quietly. My voice cracked on the word. "I need your help." There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing, could imagine him sitting in his home office, the one with the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Then he said, "Tell me everything." So I told him. I told him about the humiliation at dinner, the years of sacrifice, the 2 jobs I worked while James partied with his friends and called it networking, the way his family treated me like I was worthless, like I should be grateful. They let me sit at their table. My father didn't interrupt, he just listened, the way he used to when I was a little girl, and came to him with problems. When I finished, there was another pause. Then he said, 3 words, "Come home, darling." But I didn't want to run home. I didn't want to hide behind my father's money and power. I wanted something else, something sharper. "I want to show him who I am," I said. "I want him to know exactly what he lost." My father was silent for a moment. Then he laughed, a low, dangerous sound I remembered from childhood, the laugh he used right before crushing a business rival who'd underestimated him. "Then let's make sure he never forgets." We talked for an hour. He asked questions in that methodical way of his. What's James's company called? Who are his partners? Who's investing? What are his debts? I gave him details, everything I'd absorbed, over 5 years of listening to James brag about his business plans. My father took notes. I could hear him typing. "You've been carrying him for 5 years, he said finally. "It's time he stood on his own, or fell." "I want him to fall," I said. The words came out cold, certain. I barely recognized my own voice. "Then he will," my father promised. "I'll make some calls. You just keep playing the part. Let him think everything's normal." "Can you do that?" "Yes," I said. By the time I hung up, I felt different, lighter, sharper, like I'd been wearing a heavy coat for years, and finally took it off. James thought I was dumb. He thought I was weak. He thought he could humiliate me. and I'd just take it because I had nowhere else to go. He was about to learn the most expensive lesson of his life. I walked into our apartment. James was on the couch, scrolling through his phone, probably texting Vanessa, though I didn't know about her yet. He didn't even look up when I came in. "Where's the cake?" he asked, his eyes still on his screen. I smiled. It felt strange on my face, like wearing a mask. I left it where it belongs. He finally glanced at me, confused. Then he shrugged and went back to his phone. "Whatever, I'm tired. Going to bed." I watched him walk to our bedroom and close the door. I stood in the living room alone, my smile fading. Let him sleep, I thought. He's going to need his rest. The next morning, I woke up before James, like I always did. My internal clock had been trained over 5 years to rise at 6 a.m., no alarm needed. The bedroom was still dark, the early morning light just beginning to creep through the gaps in our curtains. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, listening to James breathe beside me, deep, peaceful, unbothered. He had no idea what was coming, no idea that the woman lying next to him, the woman he'd humiliated less than 12 hours ago, was about to dismantle his entire world piece by piece. I got up quietly, careful not to wake him. I went through my morning routine on autopilot: shower, dress in simple clothes, pull my hair back. Then I went to the kitchen and made him breakfast. Scrambled eggs, cooked until they were just barely set, the way he insisted they had to be. Toast with butter, not too dark. Coffee, black with 1 sugar, in his favorite mug, exactly how he liked it, exactly how I'd made it every single morning for 5 years. I set everything on the table with precision, arranging the plate just so, folding a napkin beside it. I stood there and waited, my face calm, my hands steady. He came out 20 minutes later, already dressed in one of his expensive suits, the navy blue one with the subtle pinstripe, tailored to fit him perfectly, one of the ones I'd helped him buy with money I'd earned working night shifts at the restaurant, standing on my feet for 8 hours, while entitled customers snapped their fingers at me and left terrible tips. He'd needed to look professional for meetings, he'd said, needed to project success to attract investors. I'd handed over my credit card without hesitation, believing I was investing in our future. Our future. The words tasted bitter now. He sat down at the table without acknowledging me, didn't say good morning, didn't thank me for the breakfast, just sat down and started eating, shoveling food into his mouth mechanically, while his eyes stayed glued to his phone screen. His thumbs moved rapidly, typing something, probably texting his business partner, or maybe Vanessa, though I didn't know about her yet. That revelation was still hours away. "I'm meeting investors today," he announced without looking up, his voice flat and businesslike. He straightened his tie with one hand while still holding his phone in the other. "Big deal. Could change everything. This could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for." "That's wonderful," I said softly, my voice dripping with the sweetness and support I'd perfected over the years. The voice of the good wife, the supportive partner, the woman who never questioned or challenged or demanded anything for herself. He finally looked at me then, really looked at me for the first time that morning. His eyes narrowed slightly, studying my face with something like suspicion. "You're not mad about last night?" I smiled. It felt strange on my face, like wearing a mask that didn't quite fit anymore. Why would I be mad? He seemed confused for a second, his fork pausing halfway to his mouth. I could see him processing this, trying to understand why I wasn't crying or yelling or demanding an apology. He'd expected tears, probably, expected me to beg him to take back his words, to tell me he didn't mean it, to reassure me that I wasn't actually dumb. He'd expected drama, emotion, weakness. When I gave him none of that, he didn't know what to do with it. Then he shrugged, dismissing whatever brief concern had flickered across his face. "Good. I don't have time for drama today. This meeting is too important." He took another bite of eggs, chewed, swallowed. "I need you to pick up my suit from the dry cleaner, the gray one. I'll need it for Thursday's presentation. And call my mom. She wants you to help her plan some charity thing she's organizing, something about a silent auction. She'll give you the details." "Of course," I said, my voice steady and agreeable. "Whatever you need." He grabbed his briefcase from beside the door, checked his reflection in the hallway mirror, smoothed down his hair. "I'll be home late tonight. The meeting might run long, and then I'm supposed to grab drinks with a few potential investors. Network, you know. Don't wait up for me. Good luck with your meeting." I called after him, my tone warm and encouraging. "I know you'll do great." He left without another word, didn't kiss me goodbye, didn't say he loved me, just walked out and closed the door behind him with a decisive click that seemed to echo in the sudden silence of the apartment.
The moment that door closed, my smile disappeared like someone had flipped a switch. The mask fell away, and something cold and sharp took its place. I stood there for a moment, staring at the closed door, feeling nothing but a strange sense of clarity. Then I moved into action. I cleared his plate, scraping the remaining eggs into the trash. I washed the dishes methodically, dried them, put them away. I wiped down the counter, the table, erasing all evidence of the breakfast I'd made for a man who didn't deserve it. Then I walked to the bedroom with purpose. I went to the closet, pushed aside the hanging clothes, and reached up to the top shelf where I kept storage boxes. Behind the winter blankets and old photo albums was a laptop case. I pulled it down, unzipped it, and took out the laptop I'd kept hidden for 5 years, the one James didn't know about. The one I'd bought under my real name and kept separate from everything in our shared life. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened it, waiting for it to boot up. My hands were steady now, my mind crystal clear. I logged into an account James had never seen, would never have thought to look for. My private email, the one still registered under Stella Armand, not Stella Mitchell, the one connected to my family's resources, my old life, the world I'd left behind but never completely severed ties with. I had spent 5 years playing the role of a simple supportive wife, 5 years pretending to be someone smaller, quieter, less capable than I actually was, but I'd never cut ties completely. I wasn't stupid, despite what James thought. I kept one email address active, one bank account under my real name with a modest balance, just enough to start over if I ever needed to, one connection to the world I'd left behind, maintained quietly, secretly, just in case I ever needed an escape route. Just in case the man I loved turned out to be someone I couldn't trust. Now I was stepping back into that world, back into the power and resources I'd walked away from, back into being Stella Armand. I composed 3 emails, each one carefully worded, professional, precise. The first went to my father's corporate lawyer, Marcus Chen. Marcus was a legend in legal circles, a man who'd never lost a case, who could find loopholes in ironclad contracts, who could destroy opponents in court with surgical precision. I'd known him since I was a child. He'd taught me chess when I was 10, told me that every move had consequences, that you had to think 5 steps ahead. Hey Marcus, I wrote. It's Stella Armand. I need your help with a delicate matter. Are you available for a confidential consultation? The second email went to a private investigator named Sarah Chen, no relation to Marcus, though they'd worked together on several cases. I'd used Sarah once in college when I suspected a boyfriend of cheating. She'd confirmed my suspicions within 48 hours with photographs, text message records, and a detailed timeline. She was thorough, discreet, and absolutely ruthless when it came to uncovering the truth. Sarah, I wrote, I need your services again. Surveillance and financial investigation. Urgent. Can we talk today? The third email went to my old mentor Patricia Winters. Patricia ran the most powerful PR firm in the state, the kind of firm that could make or break reputations with a single press release. She'd taken me under her wing when I was 22, fresh out of college, taught me everything about managing public perception, controlling narratives, destroying enemies without them ever knowing who'd struck the blow. Patricia, I typed, I'm back. I need your expertise. Can we meet this week? I hit send on all 3 emails, and then turned my attention to James's business. I started digging, accessing public records that anyone could find if they knew where to look. Business filings, loan documents, corporate registrations, court records. It took me 3 hours of steady, focused research, following paper trails and connecting dots, but I found everything I needed. What I found made my stomach turn with a mixture of disgust and grim satisfaction. James's company wasn't just struggling like he'd been telling me for months, it was drowning, sinking fast with no life preserver in sight. He'd taken out loans from investors I'd never heard of, shady ones with predatory interest rates, the kind my father had warned me about years ago, the kind that legitimate businessmen avoided because they came with strings attached. He was 3 months behind on payments, juggling creditors, robbing Peter to pay Paul. His business partner, the guy he'd started the company with, had quit 6 months ago. I found the dissolution paperwork. There had been a dispute, accusations of mismanagement, threats of legal action. The big investor meeting he kept talking about, the the one he was attending today. It was his last chance to save everything, his Hail Mary, his final desperate attempt to keep the whole house of cards from collapsing. And the money I'd given him over the years, my savings from working 2 jobs, my paychecks that I'd handed over without question, over $100,000 total, he'd been using it to cover his debts and maintain his lifestyle. The fancy dinners at expensive restaurants, where he networked with potential investors, the expensive suits he needed to project success, the trips with his family to their vacation home, trips I was never invited on because I was too busy working. But there was something else, something that made my hands shake as I read through bank statements I'd accessed through public financial records, something that made my vision blur with rage. Bank transfers to someone named Vanessa Cole, thousands of dollars over the past 8 months, regular payments, like clockwork, and accompanying those transfers were charges I recognized: hotels downtown, expensive restaurants, a jewelry store, a luxury spa. He was cheating on me. Her name was Vanessa Cole. She was 24 years old, blonde, worked as his marketing consultant. I found her Instagram easily. It was public, full of photos of her in expensive restaurants, designer clothes, exotic vacations, and in some of them, if you looked carefully, you could see James's reflection in windows, his hand on her waist, his smile.
The private investigator sent me a full report within 2 days, photos of them together. James and Vanessa at restaurants I'd never been to, at hotels downtown, at her apartment, a luxury place in the expensive part of the city. He'd been seeing her for 8 months. 8 months. While I worked 2 jobs. While I smiled through his family's insults. While I believed we were building a life together. I stared at the photos on my laptop screen, my hands perfectly still on the keyboard. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there, absorbing it, letting it sink into my bones. The money I'd saved from working double shifts at the restaurant, he'd used it to take her on weekend trips to wine country, the business dinners he attended 3 times a week, dates with her, the late nights at the office, her bed, and his family knew. The investigator found text messages between James and his mother. She'd encouraged it. "Stella's too boring anyway." She'd written in one message, "Vanessa is better for your image. She comes from a good family." A good family. I almost laughed. If only they knew. I sat back in my chair and did laugh. Then, it was a hollow, bitter sound that echoed in our empty apartment. James thought I was dumb. His family thought I was beneath them. Vanessa probably thought she'd won some prize. They had no idea what was coming. I opened a new document and started making a list. Every lie James had told me, every betrayal, every person involved. His mother, his brothers who'd laughed at me, Vanessa, the shady investors. I wrote it all down in careful detail. Then I made a plan. Step 1. Let him think he's winning. Step 2. Take everything. I spent the rest of the day preparing. I called the dry cleaner and picked up his suit. I called his mother and listened to her condescending voice. Tell me about her charity event, how she needed me to help set up tables and serve drinks. I said yes to everything. I played the part perfectly. That night, James came home smiling. Actually smiling. He grabbed me and kissed my forehead. "The investors loved me," he said. "We're going to be rich, Stella. Everything's going to change." I kissed his cheek. "I'm so proud of you, darling." He went to take a shower, humming to himself. I stood in the kitchen, listening to the water run, and I smiled. Everything was going to change. He was right about that. Over the next 2 weeks, I played the perfect wife. I smiled. I cooked his favorite meals. I cleaned the apartment until it sparkled. I attended his mother's charity event and let her treat me like hired help, carrying trays of champagne to her wealthy friends, while they ignored me. I listened to James brag about his brilliant business moves and nodded encouragingly, asking simple questions that made him feel smart. Meanwhile, my father's team worked in the shadows like a well-oiled machine. The investigator dug deeper into James's business. He found more debt than I'd originally discovered. James had borrowed money from 3 different investors, all of them expecting return he couldn't possibly deliver. He was juggling payments, robbing Peter to pay Paul, barely staying afloat. The only thing keeping his company alive was the money I'd given him and the big investor meeting he had scheduled for next week. That investor, a man named Robert Callahan, was supposedly interested in putting $2 million into James's company. What James didn't know was that Robert Callahan was my father's oldest friend. They'd built their first properties together, 40 years ago. They golfed every Sunday. Their families vacationed together when I was a child. I made one phone call to my father. "Pull the meeting," I said. "Consider it done," my father replied. But I didn't stop there. I contacted James's other investors, the legitimate ones, the ones who didn't know about his mounting debts. I had my lawyer send them anonymous packages containing detailed financial records showing exactly how much James owed and to whom. I showed them the truth about his company's losses, his failed projections, his desperate situation. One by one, they pulled out. Quietly, professionally. They just stopped returning his calls. James didn't notice at first. He was too busy with Vanessa, too confident in his upcoming meeting with Mr. Callahan. He walked around our apartment like he'd already won, talking about the house we'd buy, the car he wanted, the vacation we'd take. I smiled and agreed with everything. "That sounds wonderful, honey." At night, while he slept beside me, I lay awake making lists, planning, preparing. I felt like I was watching myself from a distance, like I'd split into two people, the quiet wife he saw, and the woman I really was, the one who was about to destroy him. 3 days before his big investor meeting, James came home with champagne. Expensive champagne, probably bought with money he didn't have. "This is it, Stella," he said, popping the cork. "After this meeting, we'll never struggle again. We'll be set for life." I raised my glass. "To your future." We clinked glasses. He drank deeply, celebrating. I took a small sip and watched him over the rim. "To your future," I thought. What's left of it? The day of the meeting, James spent an hour getting ready. He put on his best suit, the charcoal gray one, with the perfect fit. He checked his hair 3 times in the mirror. He practiced his pitch out loud, gesturing to his reflection. He was glowing with confidence, practically vibrating with excitement. "This is the biggest day of my life," he said, kissing my forehead before he left. "Wish me luck." "You don't need it," I said sweetly. "You're going to be amazing." He left whistling. I watched from the window as he got into his car and drove away. I waited exactly 30 minutes. Then I got dressed. Not in my usual simple clothes, but in a tailored black suit I'd bought the day before. Armani, perfectly fitted, the kind of suit that cost more than our monthly rent. I pulled my hair back into a sleek bun. I put on the diamond earrings my mother had given me for my 21st birthday. The ones I'd kept hidden in a safety deposit box for 5 years. I applied subtle makeup, professional, polished, powerful. I looked in the mirror and saw Stella Armand staring back at me. Not Stella Mitchell, the quiet wife. Stella Armand, the woman I'd always been underneath. Then I drove to Mr. Callahan's office building downtown. It was one of my father's properties, actually. 40 stories of glass and steel. I'd played in the lobby as a child. James was there when I arrived, pacing nervously in the marble lobby. He was checking his phone, running his hand through his hair, practicing his smile. He didn't see me. I walked right past him, my heels clicking confidently on the floor, and went straight to the elevator. The security guard recognized me. "Miss Armand," he said, smiling. "Welcome back." "Thank you, David," I said. "It's good to be back." I rode the elevator to the 40th floor. Mr. Callahan's assistant greeted me warmly. "Stella, it's been too long." "Hi, Jennifer. Is he ready?" "He's waiting for you." I walked into Mr. Callahan's office. It had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He stood up when I entered, a tall man in his 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes. "Stella," he said, coming around his desk to hug me. "Your father told me everything. I'm so sorry you've been through this." "Don't be," I said, sitting in one of the leather chairs. "Just make sure he understands." Mr. Callahan nodded. "I'll handle it." We talked for 20 minutes. He asked me questions about what I wanted to happen. I told him. He took notes. Then his assistant buzzed in. "Mr. Mitchell is here." "Send him in," Mr. Callahan said. I settled back in my chair, crossing my legs. I felt calm, powerful, ready. The door opened. James walked in with his practiced smile, his hand extended for a shake. "Mr. Callahan, thank you so much for..." He stopped mid-sentence. His eyes landed on me. His face went completely white. "Stella," he stammered. "What are you? Why are you?" Mr. Callahan leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Mitchell, I don't think you've been properly introduced to your wife." James looked between me and Mr. Callahan, confusion and panic twisting his face. His hand was still extended awkwardly in the air. He slowly lowered it. "I don't understand," he said, his voice shaking. Mr. Callahan gestured to the chair, across from his desk. "Sit down, Mr. Mitchell." James sat. He kept looking at me like I was a stranger, like he'd never seen me before. In a way, he hadn't. "Do you know who you've been married to for 5 years?" Mr. Callahan asked. James opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at me. I said nothing. I just watched him, my face calm. "This is Stella Armand," Mr. Callahan continued. "Daughter of Richard Armand, one of the most powerful real estate developers in the country, heiress to a billion-dollar empire, and the woman you called too dumb to understand businesses in front of your family 2 weeks ago." The color drained from James's face completely. He looked like he might throw up. That's not." He turned to me, his eyes desperate. "Stella," I met his gaze. When I spoke, my voice was calm, cold, completely controlled. "My name is Stella Armand. I changed it to Mitchell when I met you, because I wanted to be loved for who I am, not what I have. I gave up everything to support you. I worked 2 jobs while you chased your dreams. I smiled through your family's insults. I paid your debts with money I earned serving drinks to people who wouldn't even look at me, and you repaid me by humiliating me in front of your family and cheating on me with Vanessa Cole." His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair. "I know everything, James," I continued. "The affair, the lies, the money you stole from me to take her on vacation while I worked double shifts. Your mother's text messages encouraging you to leave me because Vanessa comes from a better family." "Stella," he started. "I'm not finished." My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Mr. Callahan has reviewed your business proposal. He's declining." James turned to Mr. Callahan, panic flooding his face. "Wait, please. I can explain. Furthermore," I continued, "every other investor you've been courting has also pulled out. I made sure of that. Your company will be bankrupt within 60 days. James's voice was barely a whisper. "You did this." "No," I said. "You did this. You built a company on lies and borrowed money. You cheated on your wife. You humiliated me. I just stopped saving you." The silence in the room was absolute. James stared at me like I'd physically struck him. Mr. Callahan watched quietly, his expression neutral, but his eyes sympathetic toward me, not James. I stood up, smoothing my suit. "Oh, and one more thing. I've filed for divorce. You'll be served tomorrow morning. My lawyer is Marcus Chen. I'm sure you've heard of him." James's face went even whiter. Marcus Chen was famous for destroying people in divorce court. I walked to the door, then paused with my hand on the handle. I looked back at James one last time. He looked small in that big leather chair, his expensive suit suddenly seeming cheap, his confidence completely shattered. "Good luck, James," I said. "You're going to need it." I walked out and didn't look back. I didn't go home. I couldn't face that apartment, that life. Not yet. Instead, I drove to my parents' house for the first time in 5 years. It was exactly as I remembered. The long driveway lined with oak trees, the sprawling white colonial with the wraparound porch, the gardens my mother tended every spring. I sat in my car for a moment, gathering courage. Then the front door opened. My mother stood there, her hand over her mouth. She looked older than I remembered, her hair more gray, but her eyes were the same, warm, worried, loving. I got out of the car. She ran down the steps and pulled me into her arms without a word. I finally let myself cry, not quiet tears, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook my whole body. She held me tight, one hand stroking my hair like she did when I was little. "I'm sorry," I whispered into her shoulder. "You were right. You were right about everything." "Shh," she said. "You're home now. That's all that matters." My father appeared in the doorway. He didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't say anything. He just walked over and wrapped both of us in his arms. And we stood there in the driveway as the sun set. 3 people who'd lost 5 years, but found each other again. That night, I slept in my childhood bedroom. It was exactly as I'd left it. The same white furniture, the same blue curtains, the same books on the shelves. It felt strange and comforting. At the same time, like stepping back into a life I'd forgotten I had. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the windows, and the smell of my mother's pancakes. For the first time in 5 years, I felt safe. Then my phone started buzzing. And buzzing. "James, Stella."
Please, we need to talk. James, this is insane. You can't do this. James, I love you. I made a mistake. Please, James. Answer me. James, answer me. James, answer me. I blocked his number. His mother called. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was shrill, angry, desperate. How dare you? You manipulative little. You've ruined him. You've ruined our family. You're nothing but a folly. I deleted it without listening to the rest. Then I blocked her too. Vanessa sent me an Instagram message. You ruined his life. You're pathetic. He never loved you anyway. I smiled and blocked her too. Let her have him. Let her deal with his debts and his lies and his failure. My lawyer called. Marcus Chen's voice was professional, calm. He's contesting the divorce. Says you're hiding assets. That you deceived him. That he deserves compensation. Let him try. I said I have nothing to hide. He does. That's what I thought. Marcus said. I'll handle it. I spent the rest of the day with my parents. We didn't talk about James. We talked about everything else. Their lives, their work, the 5 years I'd missed. My mother showed me photos from family gatherings I hadn't attended. My father told me about new projects, new buildings. They asked if I wanted to come back to work for the company. Not yet, I said. But soon. 2 days later, James showed up at my parents' gate. Security called the house. There's a man here demanding to see Miss Armand. Don't let him in, I said. I watched from my bedroom window as security escorted him away. He was shouting my name, his face red, his suit wrinkled. He looked desperate, broken. Good, I thought. Now he knows how it feels. James's family tried to fight back, but they were amateurs playing in a professional's game. His mother called my father's office, demanding a meeting. She was turned away by his assistant before she even got past the lobby. His older brother, Michael, posted on social media a long rant about how I was a gold digger, who'd tricked his poor brother, how I'd hidden my wealth to trap him, how I'd destroyed his business out of spite. He painted me as a villain, and James as a victim. Within an hour, my PR team, Patricia Winters and her staff, had him trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons. They dug up his own dirty laundry, unpaid child support from a previous relationship, a DUI he'd covered up, questionable business dealings. His employer, a prestigious law firm, called him in for a meeting. By the end of the day, he deleted his post and issued a public apology. James's lawyer tried to freeze my assets, claiming I'd hidden wealth during our marriage. Marcus Chen crushed the motion in court with a single hearing. He presented documentation, showing I'd kept my accounts separate, that I'd never used my family money during our marriage, that every dollar I'd given James came from my own earned income. Then Marcus filed a countersuit. Fraud, emotional distress, misrepresentation. He demanded repayment of the $100,000 I'd given James, plus interest, plus damages. James's lawyer withdrew from the case. Too messy, apparently. Then the investigator sent me something interesting, a document showing that James's mother, Patricia Mitchell, had co-signed several of his business loans. When his company went bankrupt, and it would any day now, she'd be personally liable for his debts. I didn't make that happen. I didn't orchestrate it. She'd done it herself, so confident in her son's success that she'd put her own assets on the line. But I didn't stop it either. I didn't warn her. I didn't help. 1 week later, James's mother called me directly, not through lawyers or family members. Her voice was shaking when I answered. Stella, she said. Please, we're going to lose the house. The bank is foreclosing. I'm begging you. I paused. Let the silence stretch. Let her feel it. You should have thought of that before you called me worthless, I said quietly. Before you encouraged your son to cheat on me. Before you laughed when he humiliated me. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. Please, I'll do anything. There's nothing you can do, I said. Goodbye, Patricia. I hung up. My hands were steady. I felt nothing. The divorce hearing was set for a Thursday morning in late October. The courthouse was downtown, a gray building with marble steps and columns. I arrived early with Marcus. I wore a navy suit and minimal jewelry. I looked calm, professional, untouchable. James arrived 10 minutes late with a court-appointed lawyer, since his previous attorney had quit. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. His suit was wrinkled. His eyes were bloodshot. His hair was messy. He looked like a stranger. Not the confident man I'd married, but something hollow and desperate. We sat on opposite sides of the courtroom. He kept glancing at me. I didn't look back. The judge was a woman in her 50s, named Judge Martha Brennan. She had a reputation for being fair but harsh on anyone who wasted her time. James's lawyer stood up first. He was young, inexperienced, clearly out of his depth. He argued that I had deceived James by hiding my wealth, that I'd manipulated him, that I owed him compensation for emotional damages, and for the years he'd invested in our marriage. It was pathetic. Judge Brennan looked bored. Then Marcus stood up. He was brilliant, sharp, elegant, merciless. He spoke calmly, methodically, like he was explaining simple math. He presented evidence. Bank statements showing I'd given James over $100,000 during our marriage, money from my own earned income, not my family wealth. Text messages between James and Vanessa, showing the affair had lasted 8 months, photos of them together, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, all paid with money I'd given him. Then Marcus presented James's mother's text messages, the ones encouraging the affair, the ones calling me boring, worthless, beneath their family. The courtroom was silent. James's face was red. His lawyer had nothing to say. Then Marcus presented something else, a video. Someone at the anniversary dinner had filmed it on their phone. The entire scene, me standing there with the cake, James telling me I was too dumb to understand business, his family's laughter. The judge watched in complete silence. When it ended, she looked at James with pure disdain. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, her voice cold, "your petition is denied. Mrs. Armand is granted full divorce, with no alimony owed. Furthermore, I'm ordering you to repay the $100,000 you borrowed from her during your marriage, with interest, within 90 days. James's face crumbled. "Your Honor, I don't have. That's not my problem," Judge Brennan said. "You should have thought about that before you squandered your wife's money on your mistress." She looked at me. Her expression softened slightly. "Mrs. Armand, I'm sorry for what you endured. No one deserves to be treated that way." "Thank you, Your Honor," I said quietly. The judge signed the papers. It was done. 5 years of marriage, erased in 20 minutes. As I walked out of the courtroom, James grabbed my arm. His grip was desperate, his eyes wild. "Stella, please," he started. I pulled away sharply. "Don't touch me. We're done." His lawyer pulled him back. "Mr. Mitchell, you need to—" I didn't hear the rest. I walked away, Marcus beside me, and didn't look back. Outside, the October air was cool and clean. I stood on the courthouse steps, breathing deeply. "You okay?" Marcus asked. "I'm free," I said. Over the next month, I watched James's life fall apart from a distance, not because I was stalking him, but because news traveled. His family couldn't keep quiet. His friends couldn't help gossiping. His company declared bankruptcy. The official filing was public record. His investors sued him for fraud. He had to liquidate everything: office equipment, computers, furniture. It sold for pennies on the dollar, nowhere near enough to cover his debts. Vanessa left him the moment his money dried up. Someone told me she'd started dating a lawyer from his brother's firm. I hoped James heard about it. His mother lost her house, the bank foreclosed, and she moved into a small apartment across town. His father filed for separation. His brothers stopped speaking to him. Embarrassed by the association, James moved into a cheap apartment in a bad neighborhood. He got a job as a sales associate at an electronics store. Minimum wage plus commission. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel satisfaction. I just felt free, like I'd been carrying a heavy weight for years, and finally set it down. My father offered me a position in his company, executive vice president of development. My own office, my own projects, real responsibility. I accepted. I started rebuilding the life I'd left behind. I reconnected with old friends from college. I traveled. Paris, London, Barcelona. I laughed. I breathed. I remembered who I was. One evening in December, I stopped at a small coffee shop near my new apartment. It was cozy, warm, full of people reading and working on laptops. I ordered a latte, and found a seat by the window. Then I saw him. James. He was behind the counter, wearing an apron, taking someone's order. He saw me at the same moment. He froze. The color drained from his face. I could have left. I could have walked out and never looked back. But something made me stay. Some small part of me that needed closure. I walked over calmly. The line had cleared. It was just us. "Hello, James," I said. "Stella." His voice was hoarse, barely audible. "I didn't know you came here. I just moved nearby," I said. There was a long, awkward silence. He looked down at the counter, his hands shaking slightly. "I'm sorry," he said finally, "for everything. I was awful to you. You didn't deserve any of it." I looked at him, really looked at him. He seemed smaller somehow, older. The arrogance was gone. The charm was gone. He just looked tired and broken. "I know," I said. "Do you think?" He swallowed hard. "Could we ever? I mean, is there any chance?" "No," I said gently. "There isn't." He nodded slowly, tears forming in his eyes. "I understand. I wanted to feel something. Anger, satisfaction. But I felt nothing. He was just a stranger now. Someone I used to know. I hope you figure things out," I said. "I really do." He looked up, surprised by the kindness in my voice. "People can change," I continued. "I did. Maybe you will too." I turned and walked away. I didn't order coffee. I didn't look back. I just walked out into the cold December evening, the city lights glittering around me. Outside, I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, breathing in the crisp air. For the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. My phone buzzed. A text from someone I'd met last month at a gallery opening. His name was Daniel. He was a novelist. Quiet, thoughtful, kind. "Dinner tomorrow. There's a new Italian place I want to try." I smiled and typed back, "I'd love that." 6 months after the divorce, I was a different person. Or maybe I was the same person I'd always been, just no longer hiding. I stopped pretending. I used my real name again, Stella Armand. I took my position at my father's company seriously, managing development projects worth millions. I was good at it. I'd forgotten how much I loved the challenge, the strategy, the satisfaction of building something real. I cut my hair short, just above my shoulders. I bought clothes that made me feel powerful, tailored suits, elegant dresses, designer heels, not to impress anyone, but because I wanted to. I smiled at strangers. I laughed louder. I took up space.
Bill asked me if I regretted marrying James. Honestly, no. He taught me something important. Never shrink yourself for someone else's comfort. Never make yourself small so someone else can feel big. I had spent 5 years pretending to be smaller, quieter, less capable than I was. I thought that's what love required. I thought if I just supported him enough, believed in him enough, sacrificed enough, he'd love me back. I was wrong. Real love doesn't ask you to disappear. It asks you to shine. I started a foundation for women leaving abusive or manipulative relationships, not just physically abusive, emotionally abusive too. The kind of relationships where you lose yourself slowly, where you wake up one day and don't recognize who you've become. I funded legal aid, counseling, job training, housing assistance. I met women who'd been through worse than me, much worse. I listened to their stories. I helped where I could, and slowly I healed. Not because I got revenge on James. Revenge didn't heal me. Walking away healed me. Reclaiming myself healed me. I met women at the foundation who'd lost everything, their homes, their children, their identities. Women who'd been beaten, controlled, isolated. Women who'd escaped with nothing but the clothes on their backs. They were the bravest people I'd ever met. They reminded me that leaving takes more courage than staying. That starting over takes more strength than enduring. I hired some of them to work at the foundation. I watched them rebuild their lives, piece by piece. Their strength inspired me every day. 1 year after the divorce, I received an invitation in the mail. James's younger brother Thomas was getting married. The note inside was handwritten. "Stella, we're sorry. We were wrong about you. We'd love for you to come celebrate with us." I held the invitation for a long moment, reading it twice. Then I smiled and dropped it in the trash. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. 2 years after the divorce, I was at a charity gala my mother organized. It was at a hotel downtown, one of my father's properties. The ballroom was full of business leaders, politicians, socialites, crystal chandeliers, string quartet. champagne flowing. I wore a black gown, simple but elegant. I stood talking with a group of investors about a new development project. I was happy, genuinely happy. Not the fake happiness I'd performed for 5 years, but real contentment that came from living authentically. Then I saw him across the room. James, he was wearing a waiter's uniform, carrying a tray of champagne glasses. Our eyes met. He recognized me immediately. His face went pale. He nearly dropped the tray. I could have walked away. I could have ignored him, but I didn't. Some part of me needed to see this through, to have one final conversation. I excused myself from my group and walked over calmly. He watched me approach, frozen. "Hello, James," I said. He looked down at his tray. "Miss Armand. Miss Armand, not Stella." The formality stung, even though I'd asked for it. "How are you?" I asked. He hesitated. "I'm managing, working 2 jobs, trying to pay off my debts, trying to rebuild." I nodded. "That's good. Honest work is good." There was a long pause. The gala continued around us. Laughter, conversation, music. We stood in our own small bubble of silence. "Stella," he said quietly, not looking at me. "I know I don't deserve to ask this, but do you ever think about—" "No," I said gently but firmly. "I don't." He nodded slowly, his eyes wet. "I understand. I should have walked away then, but something made me stay. Maybe pity, maybe closure, maybe just the need to say what I'd never said. But I hope you find your way," I said. "I really do. I hope you learn from this. I hope you become better." He looked up, surprised. "You mean that?" "I do," I said. "People can change." I did. "Maybe you will too." A tear rolled down his cheek. He wiped it away quickly. "I don't deserve your kindness." "Probably not," I agreed. "But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. Because holding on to anger would only hurt me." He nodded, unable to speak. "Take care of yourself, James," I said. I turned and walked back into the crowd. I didn't look back. I rejoined my group, accepted a glass of champagne, and continued my conversation about interest rates and zoning laws. That night, I stood on my balcony overlooking the city. My apartment was beautiful, high floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, but it wasn't the luxury that made me happy. It was the freedom, the knowledge that I'd built this life myself, that no one could take it from me. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel, the novelist I'd been seeing for a few months. We'd taken things slowly. He was patient, understanding. He never pushed. He just saw me, the real me. "How was the gala?" I smiled and typed back. "It was good. Want to get breakfast tomorrow? I'd love that." "My place or yours?" "Yours. I'll bring coffee." I set my phone down and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there James was probably finishing his shift, riding the bus home to his small apartment. Somewhere out there his mother was probably awake, worrying about money. Somewhere out there Vanessa was probably with her new boyfriend, already forgetting James existed. And here I was, free, whole, happy. I didn't win because I destroyed James. I won because I saved myself. 3 years after leaving James, I stood in my corner office, overlooking the city skyline. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, photos on my desk of my parents, my friends, me at the foundation's ribbon-cutting ceremony. I'd built something real, a career I was proud of, a foundation that had helped over 300 women rebuild their lives, friendships that mattered, a life that was authentically mine. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who stood in that dining room, holding a cake, the one who let herself be humiliated and said nothing. She felt like a stranger now, someone I'd known long ago but barely remembered. I had learned something important over these 3 years. Revenge isn't about destroying someone else. It's about reclaiming yourself. James lost everything because of his own choices, his lies, his cruelty, his arrogance. I didn't ruin him. I just stopped saving him. And in doing so, I saved myself. The intercom buzzed. My assistant's voice came through. "Miss Armand, your 2 o'clock is here. Send them in," I said. I opened my calendar on my computer. Tomorrow I had a meeting with a new client. Next week, I was traveling to Paris for a conference. Next month, my foundation was opening its 4th location. I was busy. I was thriving. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. As I packed up for the day, my assistant knocked on the door. She was young, eager, reminded me of myself at that age. "Miss Armand, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's personal. I looked up. Who is it? She smiled. He says his name is Daniel, and he brought flowers. My heart did a small flip. Daniel. We'd been dating for almost a year now, slowly, carefully. He knew about my past, not all the details, but enough. He never pushed. He never demanded. He just loved me. Simply, honestly. Send him in, I said, smiling. Daniel appeared in the doorway, holding a bouquet of peonies, my favorite. He was tall, with kind eyes, and an easy smile. He wore jeans and a sweater, completely out of place in this corporate building, but somehow perfect. I was in the neighborhood, he said, looking slightly embarrassed. Thought I'd see if you wanted dinner. I looked at him. Really looked at him. At his genuine smile. At the way he held the flowers carefully, like they mattered. At the way he looked at me, not at my last name, or my money, or my position, but at me. For the first time in years, I felt something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. I'd love that, I said. We went to a small Italian restaurant in the neighborhood. Not fancy, just cozy and warm. We sat by the window and talked about everything and nothing. His new novel, my latest project, a movie we both wanted to see. He made me laugh. I made him laugh. It was easy, natural. After dinner, we walked through the city. The October air was cool, the leaves turning gold and red, the lights glittered around us. He took my hand, and I let him. Stella, he said, stopping under a streetlight. I know you've been through a lot. You don't talk about it much, and I respect that. But I want you to know, I see you, the real you, and I think you're extraordinary. My throat tightened. Tears pricked my eyes. Thank you, I whispered. He smiled and squeezed my hand. I mean it. We walked home together. He kissed me goodnight at my door. Gentle, respectful, perfect. I watched him walk away, then went inside. I stood in my apartment, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, James was living his life. Somewhere out there, his family was dealing with their consequences. Somewhere out there, Vanessa was probably chasing her next target, and here I was, free, whole, happy, ready to love again. I didn't know where my story with Daniel would go. Maybe we'd build something beautiful together. Maybe we wouldn't. Either way, I was okay, because I'd learned the most important lesson. I didn't need someone else to complete me. I was already complete. I pulled out my phone and opened social media. I rarely posted, but tonight felt different. I typed 3 years ago. I walked away from someone who made me feel small. Today I'm living a life I love, surrounded by people who lift me up. If you've ever left someone who didn't deserve you, I see you. I'm proud of you. You're stronger than you know. I posted it and set my phone down. Within minutes, comments started appearing. Women sharing their stories, men sharing their stories, people I'd never met telling me I'd inspired them. I read through them, tears streaming down my face. Happy tears this time. I don't know where my story goes from here. Maybe Daniel and I will build something beautiful. Maybe I'll keep focusing on my work and my foundation. Maybe I'll travel the world. Maybe I'll do all of it. Either way, I'm free. I'm me, and that's enough. If my story reminded you that you're stronger than you think, drop a like and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've ever walked away from someone who didn't deserve you, drop a comment. I see you, and I'm proud of you.